Hey everybody, this is Tom from VermiBag. I want to do a quick update on the VermiBag Minimist. I've had this thing running now for, I don't know, a couple months too. It's doing really well. I've been pleasantly surprised at the moisture in it. I actually thought there'd be more condensation than there is, and there isn't. The worms haven't been climbing. They're doing really well. There's nothing coming out the bottom of the system whatsoever. I've opened this up on the bottom. It's moist, but it's not overly wet. So overall, I'm actually really happy with the system so far. Let's open it up and take a peek inside, see how the worms are doing, and then we'll give it a big feeding. Let's open this up and see what it looks like inside. So you can see the worms hanging out on the top of the burlap on here. There's quite a few. One thing about this burlap is once it starts getting older, it really, the worms just get so entwined in it that it's hard to pull the burlap up. So at some point I'll just let that burlap go down towards the bottom of the bag because I don't want to rip worms in half when I'm pulling it out. But I don't know if you can see them in there, but there's actually a lot of cocoons right there on the surface. I see 5 or 6 just looking at it right there. So they really do like this burlap. So like I said, as long as I have it, I keep giving it to them. Dig down here and see how the worms are doing in the system. They look real good. I haven't given it a big feeding for a while, so they're kind of working over some of the remnants of what I put in here a couple weeks ago. Down below you can see the material looks pretty dark. Moisture-wise, again, it's really nice. It's not muddy, but it's definitely really moist. There's another piece of burlap that's actually been buried for a while. I mean, there are so many worms on this thing. They just love it. And again, I can see quite a few cocoons mixed in amongst this. Wow, look at that. They just congregate around this stuff and do their thing. Now, over on the side right there that I just dug, that's pretty moist. I'm not sure if it's why. Again, another huge worm ball right there. Let me pull this other corner here. Yeah, at the very bottom, it's a little, I'm not going to call it muddy, but it's a little wet down on the bottom. I may, here's a leftover piece of a squash, just the shell, of course. But let me dig all the way down to the bottom just to get a chunk of the dirt right at the very bottom. And see how moist it is. Okay, that's right at the bottom, right above the harvest panel. I mean, it'll still break apart, but I think what I'll do in order to keep it from getting too condensed down in the bottom there and getting too moist. And that's part of the problem. Once it gets really condensed, it can get pretty moist because it'll hold that moisture in. I'm going to go ahead and agitate this thing up and try and get it aerated a little bit. That'll bring some of this unprocessed paper down to the bottom and just loosen the system up a little bit and help it dry out just a little bit. Because there's still material. When I started this thing, I actually added an awful lot of material to it. So even down towards the bottom, there's a fair amount of unprocessed material. So it doesn't really matter if I'm agitating it up right now. The whole system itself is full of food and material that needs to be processed. But by doing that, agitating the system a little bit, I kind of loosen it up. I get more oxygen flow through it. It'll probably dry out just a little bit. Now I'm going to go ahead and grab a chunk of food. I'll put a little bit of food on here and a little bit of Bedding, I have some bedding, moist bedding that's just barely moist. And I'll cover it up and give them a good feeding. Okay, so I got a really good feeding for this system. I got a half of a squash I'm going to put in there. Got a bunch of carrot tops and celery tops. There's a cucumber here. Big piece of a yellow pepper. Banana peel and some more celery stalks. Go ahead and add that all in there. And I got some of the bedding I make. I'll go ahead and throw that over the top. Put that over there. And go ahead and put my burlap over the top. I'll flip it the other way. And that's it. So overall, the worms are doing really good. A lot of material in there still, but I think with this feeding, we'll bring the worms up. We'll get a good idea next week with this big feeding how many worms are actually in the system, because they'll probably all come up to the surface. But moisture content, tiny little bit on the wetter side, so that's why I agitated it up. But again, if you look at the system, there's no condensation. There's been no climbers on the system, on the sides of the bag, so the worms are liking it there. They're not trying to get out at all. There's been no condensation whatsoever on the lid. It's a solid lid, so it breathes really well. So we'll take a look at it next week and see how they're coming then. That's all for now. This is Tom from VermiBag. Till next time, ciao.